Hello, you are now watching How to AE YouTube channel. My name is Arkady Chumakov, and today I'm going to show you the difference between Quadro K4000 and GTX 550 Ti. I will test them in Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Media Encoder, Cinema 4D, and AutoCAD. And actually I want to figure out, does Quadro worth money you spent for it? I installed the GPU meter application to see the usage of processor cores. My current computer configuration is 24 gigs of RAM. My testing machine is Intel Core i7 4790, 3.6 gigs. I have Nvidia Quadro K4000 installed. Let's create testing composition. I'll go ahead and create a new layer and apply optical flares effect. I will use this effect because it supports GPU acceleration. Let's apply this preset and animate it. My composition will be 30 seconds length. Let's place GPU meter here. Let's animate position first. As you see, all my movements are real-time. I set quality to full. No lags, pretty much real-time. Let's preview composition. Let's name it lens flare. Now I will create composition that will use particular effect. Let's create some particles. Let's set up particular effect. Particles per seconds 500. Let's use sphere. I will increase the size of the particle. Let's say glow sphere. Okay, let's create camera. And actually I want to fly through my scene using this camera. Some kind of Star Wars flying through universe. Basically, it works pretty well. I'm pretty satisfied with the result. Okay, let's load processor. Let's set particles per second to 5000. It works just fine, no lags, real time. Okay, that's my testing composition. I will animate camera like this. And in the end, the camera will return to its initial point. I'll go ahead and save my composition. My next composition is another trapcode effect. Let's use form. I'll go ahead and crank up some values to load processor. I will create camera as well, link it to the 3D null, and I will fly through my composition using that camera. Let's rotate it. I will distribute evenly these keyframes. Let's crank up the size of the particles, 5, let's say. It works pretty well. This is the full real time. As you see, the GPU load is no more than 20%. No problems at all. Let's name it form. I'll duplicate that scene and apply mirror effect. It creates geometrical stuff, fractals, and so on. Let's crank up the size of the effect. Let's fly through it as well. I don't see any problems with that scene. It works pretty well. Let's name it mirror. I'll create another composition that will use ray tracing. I will switch to ray traced 3D and hit OK. Let's create blank layer and new light. Another one and switch it to ambient. A bit lighter. This composition will use ray trace possibilities of After Effects itself. Let's create text layer and write test. Paint it black. Switch to 3D. As you see, we have some artifacts, some strange artifacts. Let's create extrude and rotate it. I will apply expression time multiplied by 50. You see that text is actual 3D. Let's position background layer and scale it up. I'll go ahead and twirl up the advanced settings. I'll add some transparency to the material. I think it will be enough to test. As you see, working with ray traced 3D composition, I have no problems. Retracing quality set to 2. Let's create final testing composition. That will be our background layer. Let's name that composition ray tracing and put it into our final composition as well. I will switch blending mode. Let's say add. No, multiply. No, let's say overlay. I'll add the particle composition and set it to add blending mode. Let's set this opacity to 20. This is the horrible scene, actually. Let's add mirror composition. Let's play with blending modes and opacity. And finally, I will add form composition. Let's arrange it back and set to lighten blending mode. As you see, I experienced real-time playback. Let's preview composition. This is not real time actually, but it works pretty much well. As you see, it doesn't load processor at 100%. Maybe it will use 100% of processor time when rendering, I don't know. That was Quadro testing composition. Let's render it. My composition is ready to render. I'll press caps lock to speed up the process of rendering. I'll press Ctrl+M. I will render my composition to dedicated SSD disk. Let's go. We got some results. 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, that was After Effects. Let's see what we have in Maxon Cinema 4D. I will test render on my recent project. Let's set up rendering. I will use Full HD preset. Let's add some effects. Acoustics, ambient occlusion. I will render my composition to the same disk as After Effects. I will use QuickTime Movie format, add to render queue, and hit render. As you see, Cinema 4D R16 doesn't use GPU acceleration at all on rendering. It uses processor at 100%. I will return later when rendering complete. I'll hit pause because process is too long. It takes 24 minutes to render 17 frames. I'll hit stop. Let's take a look at the rendered video. Small video, just 1 second. It takes 20 minutes to render 1 second video. Okay, let's test Adobe Premiere Pro. Using Quadro 4000. I'll create new project. Let's import some video files here. Let's import our testing rendered video. I will go ahead and add it to timeline. That yellow line says us that it will be a real-time playback. Works well. Let's duplicate those layers and change their blending modes. This one will be multiply, and this one will be color burn, and this one screen. And surprisingly, it's still real-time playback. Let's add some effects. Let's say camera blur. You see the red line appears. It means that playback is not real-time, but it still plays smoothly. I will turn off these layers. Let's render this composition. I will render this video to H.264, 16 megabits per second. I will render it to dedicated SSD drive. Let's name it Quadro K4000 Test Premiere. Render is starting. Let's take a look. How long will it take to render this composition in Media Encoder? Let's take some video file. This one. Render to the same SSD drive. I will apply a standard YouTube preset from pre-installed presets. Let's play firmark test. Okay. Next, I will test Autodesk AutoCAD. Let's open a recent project and take a look how Quadro will behave in this project. I have very smooth real-time playback. It seems Quadro makes out pretty well in AutoCAD. Let's fire up Adobe Photoshop CC. I'll go ahead and open Preferences and make sure that graphic processor is enabled. We have some advanced properties. I set them as shown and hit OK. Let's create new file and create some 3D object. Here is my 3D text. Let's play with it. Let's manipulate. As you see, we have a real-time experience. Works pretty well. Let's add the depth of field. Now I have some lags and it's not real-time response, but it still works pretty well. I will close Photoshop, and actually I will change my video card to another one. I will pull up my Quadro and change it to GTX. Here's my card. Let's close System Unit and return to our tests. I have my hardware installed. Now we have Nvidia GeForce GTX 550 Ti installed. Here you can see these parameters, 1 GB of memory. I will go ahead and render in Cinema 4D our scene. It works pretty much the same as with Quadro. No difference between Quadro and GTX in viewport. Let's play back. I like it. We have rendered 18 frames last time, so let's do the same with GTX card. Let's change name of the file to clock GTX, and I will limit our rendering range to from 1 to 18 frames. I will add this job to render queue and return when it completes. Render starts. You can see actual rendering time on screen. GPU didn't used in both cases. It means that Cinema 4D doesn't use GPU for rendering at all. Let's test Photoshop now. I will create the same text and add same effects as with Quadro. Switch to 3D. I will add the depth of field. After adding depth of field, I feel that the video card doesn't respond in real time. Now I feel it very clearly. Yeah, you can work with this kind of effect, but it's not as smooth as with Quadro. Let's fire up Premiere Pro. I will open the same project we use with Quadro and take a look how it will respond. It says there's no Mercury Playback Engine GPU acceleration. Let's check settings and switch to CUDA. It says that hardware is not certified. Okay, I'll hit OK. Let's switch off layers and hit playback and switch off camera blur effect. Now it plays in real time. No difference. Let's switch on effects and switch on other layers as well. As you see, no difference in Premiere between cheap GTX and expensive Quadro. No difference at all. You can play back in real time in Premiere using cheap GTX card. Okay, let's open After Effects. Let's open our previous project and render it. Let's check hardware in Preferences. GPU is not available, but we can fix it. I will add the GTX card to a list of video cards that After Effects can use. Let's find Ray Tracer supported cards. Let's find this file and change it. I just copy and paste and changed the name to GTX 550. I add it in the very end of the file. Reopen After Effects and open our project. I will clear render queue and render our project. Let's hit caps lock. Change name to GTX 550 Ti and hit render. Let's take a look if there's any difference between rendering time between Quadro and GTX. Render still goes on. Ta-dam! Let's compare results. You can see them on screen. There's a 2 minutes difference between those renderings. Let's play with layers inside project. I will rotate layer. I have ray tracing enabled with the small quality. As you see, I have a real-time experience. No difference. Okay, let's check other compositions. Let's check mirror. Let's create some preview. It works pretty well. Same thing to form. I have real-time scrubbing. So there's no difference between Quadro and GTX using these effects. Same thing to lens flare. It works just fine. And this composition with a bunch of layers works real-time too. Let's make a preview of 5-second work area. Here you can see actual testing results. Let's check firmware test. And compare results. Let's try Adobe Media Encoder. Same file, same settings. As you see, in this case, Adobe doesn't prompt me that this card is not supported by CUDA. I can say that GPU doesn't actually used by Adobe Media Encoder. It uses CPU, not GPU. Quadro results is slightly bigger than GTX. Finally, let's check AutoCAD. I will test this project for now. Now you can definitely see there's a delay with the response. This is absolutely not real-time playback. You can see by naked eye that you have a difference between Quadro and GTX in AutoCAD. Yes, pretty much big delay. I'm working in shaded mode. I have uncomfortable experience using a GTX card with AutoCAD. So what we have? 2 days passed. I have tested Quadro K4000 and GTX 550 Ti. I tested them in After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, Cinema 4D, and what I figure out is that in this version of Cinema 4D I use R16. GPU doesn't used at all when rendering. I am not using V-Ray, so I can't see any benefits of using Quadro in this with this engine. I saw the actual boost in performance using Quadro in AutoCAD. In other applications such as Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe Media Encoder, Adobe After Effects, I haven't seen any extreme difference or extreme boost of performance. So I can say you don't want to buy Quadro for regular tasks in After Effects. You can use any cheap video card and there's no difference. That's all, and be sure to take a look at my other videos. Bye bye!